Looks like there's more news to do with MangaGamer, guys, and it looks like it may be a bit more selected to the series of the Fata Morgana. And I'm going to say why I'm going to cover this, because at the moment there's something that just doesn't feel right about it, and I feel like me studying a bit of Japanese business now, I can understand the decision that the maker, NOVECTACLE, took with accepting this translation. But I'll go into that in a second. Let me just introduce myself. And welcome, my name is Yuusha Anime, and welcome to the Yuusha Bulletin. And this time, guys, we are back with another thing from MangaGamer. And this bit does kind of concern me a little bit, because this means that now, MangaGamer and other Western companies, depending on who they're licensing, can actually control possible translations for their own selfish benefit rather than the makers themselves. But I'll go into the details of that a bit later on so you guys can understand where I'm coming from. I'm not saying it's fact, it's just my personal take on it, so please don't think I'm telling you all what to think or this is fact or anything. Some of this is my own personal thoughts, so please keep that in mind. It's my own biased opinion. Once you've heard me, you're more than free to have your own personal opinion on this. And also, what I'm going to say is don't do any type of harassment or anything like that one, because either way, it's just not good. No matter whether you agree or disagree with someone. But anyway, let's get to the story right here at hand. The house in Fata Morgana Western localization changed tsundere for fragile male ego. Now, I'm sure that all of you who have known anime for quite a while know that tsundere means like a hot and cold attitude, or maybe somebody acts very cold, but then they have quite a lovey-dovey side that they only show to the person that they like. So, let's actually read what exactly has happened here. So, without further ado, ikimashouka. So here is the screenshot from the House of Fata Morgana. Why, hello there, how's your fragile male ego doing up? A short while back, it was revealed that MangaGamer's localization staff was converged, and I did also cover that one, so you guys can also check out that video and come up with whatever you think yourselves. You're more than welcome to. To no one's surprise, it was also discovered that MangaGamer's Western release of NOVECTACLE's The House in Fata Morgana, or Fata Morgana no Yakata, had some of the dialogue altered to suit current year agendas, which I think is also what's happened, and I'll go into why I think that in a bit. Agendas including the Japanese term of tsundere being replaced with the English with fragile male ego, which, funny enough, we all know that tsundere is not a gendered word. It's not. It really isn't. It's dumb. It's dumb to just put it to one gender if that's what they're trying to do. Even though the English version of the game came out back in 2016, yep, some gamers only just now discovered the change. So, not only did they already publish the game in English, they decided to change it for some bizarre reason. After 4 years of publishing it. Doesn't that sound a bit weird? It's not just me who thinks that's weird, right? Some gamers only just now discovered the change and decided to talk about it on social media. It pops up in a conversation between the characters Morgana and Jacopo. Sankaku Complex captured the story from a Twitter exchange where one of the localizers, which in this case is Yuki no Gatari, again, remember what I said, no harassment, I don't encourage any of that, and everyone's entitled to their own opinion. And also, it is their work, so they are doing their job. Pops up in, okay, so, with the localizers with a translag next to their Twitter handle, yes, they do. So it's citing that there's possibly some bias on the localizer's side that may have been pushed through. It's possible, but again, I'm only conjecturing as well to some extent, so bear that in mind. Twitter handle and the pronouns in their bio, yep, that is correct, attempted to justify why they made the change after the issue was brought up recently. On May 2nd, 2020, they posted the following tweet. Fun fact, in the Japanese, Morgana is calling him a tsundere here, and you have no freaking idea how many brainstorming sessions it took over several weeks to come up with this translation. Several weeks to change tsundere to fragile male ego. I would go into why that sounds a lot like BS in a minute, but that's just me myself. Again, remember, I'm being a bit biased here. And I've also got the whole entire thread where Yukino explains in it, and I'll also read it to you in just 1 second after this tweet. This was probably the very last line finalized in the script. We agonized over it for so long. Why did you agonize for weeks on this one line? I'm going to go into a theory of my own that I think may be the case, but I won't say that right now. So, here is the thread that I wanted to also go into, where Yukino describes what's going on. So, 1. This tweet has gained quite a bit of traction over the last couple of days, and that's brought with it some confusion as the reason behind our decision to translate this line as we did. Explaining will require spoiling Fata Morgana somewhat, so keep that in mind as you read. So there we go, guys, a bit of spoilers, so keep some caution. The House of Fata Morgana, for at least a part of the game, a sort of anthology of stories that take place in the same house. Yes, that is indeed correct. Each one deals with a man who has been cursed by a witch, Morgana, for their lives to end in tragedy brought on by the deepest character flaws. 3. The character in question, Jacopo, is a Sicilian businessman slash mafioso in the 19th century America, so keep that in mind for the time frame. He's put into political marriage and charged with establishing a foundation for their family in the Americas. Fata Morgana frequently explores subjects relating to gender roles and sexism, and specifically prevalent in Jacopo's story. Yes, but remember, this is the 1900s, where not even feminism existed yet, so just keep in mind for the time frame which this takes place. His old friend Maria wants revenge on his family for killing hers and is angry that the mafia dismisses her simply for being a woman. That would be correct for the time frame, so yeah, that makes sense. She's forced to serve as Jacopo's maid while he rises to the top for just being a bloke. I don't know about that part of the story myself, so I can't say for sure, so I'm going to leave a no comment on that. The pressure of both his business dealings and of managing a mafia family causes Jacopo to neglect and physically and emotionally abuse his wife. A fact that Maria takes quick advantage for. Okay. Let's see. So she manipulates Jacopo into thinking his wife is cheating on him, and the ensuing paranoia leads him to yelling at her, destroying her prized possessions, and eventually locking her in a shed. His pride and pressure from the family prevents him from simply talking with her. So, in other words, the character's real rear end. Okay, that's fine. There are lots of games and series that have got a-hole characters that are still good characters, whether we like them or not, because they have to be a very good character for us to hate them. So, which would have immediately cleared up the misunderstandings and allowed them to reconcile. Maria, who openly rejects traditional gender roles, even though that term never really came up in the 1900s or the 19th century, I'm just saying. Specifically takes advantage of his insecurities as a man, husband, a potential capo to bring about Jacopo's downfall. Okay, now the next bit that I'm going to go to is the bit that I want to also say myself. Now, the line in the screenshot above appears in the post-game, fourth wall breaking extra during which the witch Morgana goes around visiting the game's various characters. Oh, okay, that's kind of cool. For that fact, I have been interested in playing this game myself, so that's why I thought it would be a good idea to cover this. Morgana has a particular disdain for Jacopo as the man responsible for most of her suffering in life. Okay, does that mean she's designed to be a vengeful spirit to go after them? Okay, that's cool. Okay, 9. When they meet, she greets him with Kiteyatawa, Tsundere baka yaro. That's how that reads. Which might be rendered more literally as I came to see you, stupid tsundere arsehole. Yeah, that would be fine as a translation. That would have been fine. That is literally what it says. And also, I doubt anybody who's never played a visual novel knows at least of the word tsundere because it's been around so long in anime. I mean, like, we're talking about decades it's been in anime. And not only that, I doubt anybody who's new to anime would be playing a visual novel, I'm just saying. Most of them would have at least watched a couple anime before they got to this stage. I'm not saying that's going to be the case for all, but majority-wise, more people would have watched anime before they actually would have played a visual novel, most likely. So, yeah, that line, right there. I came to see you, stupid tsundere arsehole. And that would have been fine. Why did it take 6 weeks for it to change to, how's your fragile male ego holding up? When it means, I came to see you, you freaking hot and cold arsehole. It can also mean sweet and sour if you want to put it that way. You could have said, oh, I came to see you, sweet and sour arsehole. That would have been fine. Or just call him a freaking a-hole. Along with that, came to see you, freaking a-hole. That would have been fine. Why did it have to go so much so that the translation of meaning from the Japanese is completely lost to the point where it's like going to male ego? Because ego isn't even in the vocabulary of tsundere at all whatsoever. But anyway, let's finish the thread. 10 is shorthand for one of the most prevalent character flaws in its history, as the extra scene is about highlighting various aspects of the characters. In bringing this to English, we wanted something equally snappy and vitriolic. Don't use the word like you know what it means, while accurately representing the character. Although I get why you used it. I get it. It just isn't right for me. I don't agree with it. Fata Morgana is historical fiction with heavy emphasis on societal issues. Yes, okay. Shared throughout the world, so we decided it would be best to go with something easily understandable to all readers. How's your fragile male ego? I don't think that's the most appropriate for a faithful translation into English. I mean, that's why some people had problems with Funimation doing dubs, especially for the Kobayashi Dragon Maid English dub, especially at episode 12. Hence, how's your fragile male ego holding up? Why didn't you just say, how's your fragile ego holding up? Why did you have to say male ego? Even just, your sweet and sour demeanor holding up would have been fine. How's your, sweet and sour demeanor holding up, a-hole? That would also work. That would have been fine. That would have been fine. Rather than a translation of the word itself, it's a translation of the ideas embodied in the word. Now, this is where I disagree with Yukino. Let me open the curtain so you can see me better. Embodied in the word, Yakubo's downfall is brought about by his hesitation to stray from societal expectations of masculinity. No, it's not because of masculinity by the way you phrased it. In fact, it sounds like, with the description that you gave, you based it all around societal standards that didn't even, they may have been challenged before, but there was never any movements for it in the early 19th century. Or in the 1900s. In fact, all of that only came around after World War II, if I remember correctly, and World War I even. So after 1918, when women's rights were starting to become more spoken about in UK history, at the very least, anyway. I don't know very much about American history, but I'm pretty sure it was like the early 1900s that it did start coming about and people were talking about it. That is indeed correct. But for 19th century? Nah, this seems a bit stupid to me. I chose to highlight this line specifically because it's unexpected. There we go. But it's a decision we made very carefully and which has gone over consistently well with both readers and the original developers. This is what I'm going to go over with the developers in a minute because there's something more with the developers I want to talk about. So I'll get to that in 1 minute. And also, Hirohei has already talked about this subject, so I am a bit late to this. So apologies, I didn't even know this had even happened. Yeah, some people point that tsundere, which typically relates to an emotionally distant or cold character, which is correct, that eventually warms over time, is used more often for females and than males. Okay, good writing, sorry, Angry Gamer. Than males in Japanese fiction. That is correct. But they do exist in visual novels, so that's why I'm not mentioning that. But yeah, traditionally it's more used in female characters. And that in the meaning really did relate to a fragile ego. Then it would mean every time it's being used in anime or manga, it's depicting a fragile female ego. Yes, so that logically doesn't make sense. That is a fair criticism. Alright, such criticism, however, was promptly ignored by the pronoun prefix. The people who did majority-wise disagree did have them in their profiles, and they were trying to defend it, maybe because of their own personal biases, but I cannot confirm or deny whether that's the case or not. So, as I said, I'm only doing my own take on this the best that I can from what I can see and what I know for myself. So Hirohei did a video about the incident, warning Japanese developers. There we go. The Rainbow Reich were out in space to praise the mistranslation because it fit in with the ideas being peddled by leftists. So yeah, there is a slight bit of bias in that one. And at this point, if MangaGamer doesn't clean house, they're fast on their way to become the next Nintendo Treehouse of America. I attempted to reach out to Yukino, asking why it felt it was okay to stain the author's original intent. I mean, I know the writer on this article is a bit strong with the writing, so I am keeping that in mind because, of course, I get it, you want to find out the answer, but they've blocked you on Twitter, so it just leaves you open-ended. It's open-ended. You don't know. You cannot talk to them because they blocked you, which is very annoying. I'll admit, if you're someone who wants to find answers for it, and the person who gave the the notes themselves have blocked you, so you yourself can't see it, that's just going to create more issues. But that just means that they don't want to be challenged by any other news outlets, really, by the looks of it. I mean, I know I'm maybe stretching it a little bit by saying MangaGamer's a news outlet. I'd say they're more of a independent gaming journalists, I guess. But here's the second article that came out a few days ago. And this one's involving NOVECTACLE. Now, this is where I'm going to put some of my Japanese business knowledge to use, so be prepared for that. MangaGamer, NOVECTACLE defend the House in Fata Morgana agenda-driven localization changes. Yes, they indeed have. And I'm going to explain why I believe that's the case in a minute. So yeah, this is a continuation of the last one. The public statement claims that they did their best to respect the developers' wishes and also claim that harassment was not a valid approach to the problem, inferring that people had harassed someone over the issue. And listen, as I said before, don't harass people. It's like what's going on with The Last of Us at the moment, with people like putting the spoiler links in some places where other people probably don't want to be spoiled. Just want to enjoy it. Yeah, that's fair enough. And to be honest, I've seen the leaks of it myself, but that's another thing. What I'm saying is just don't be a dick to other people. And MangaGamer did respond. So we would like to make it abundantly clear that we stand behind our localization staff and do our utmost to ensure that the developers' wishes are respected as well. While there are numerous equally valid approaches to any given translation problem, harassment is not one of them. Yes, and I agree that harassment is not a good thing, but what's gone on here it was criticism. If there were people actually harassing Yukino, that's another story. But the thing is that people think there's something funny going on with the translation. And also, when I went to this tweet right here, hold on. When I went to this tweet, look how many responses were actually 425 people and 197. So let's see if they have any hidden responses, shall we? No, they don't. Okay, so it might be just they're all stuck in here. So Kyonko02 is also on this as well, and mentions about the staff talking about the members in their Discord because of the next tweet that they put out saying, if you have sincere questions or concerns regarding the translation of any of our titles, we would encourage you to reach out to us at supportmangagamer.com instead. We may not be able to respond to all your inquiries, but we take legitimate criticisms into consideration. And here's the funny thing. Do you remember, guys, when people put in like a request for games, they totally ignored them, and also that hardly any of the responses sent to MangaGamer. Although I'll admit, when I had questions about Princess of Angeal, they did reply, even though it took them a couple weeks, I'm not going to lie. The problem is in this case with their Discord, they stated that if people had any complaints about anything, they'll just let them pile up. They wouldn't read them. So it's looking like that could be the same case with this, but I can't say for sure again. That's just my personal opinion. I think some will most likely be ignored or maybe passed off by giving an answer as well as a non-answer in the same email. This came after it was discovered that in MangaGamer's release of the House of Fata Morgana, some dialogue was changed from the Japanese version to mean something completely unrelated. Yes, that's why I don't agree with the translation, because male ego, or female ego, or ego itself is not even a word that's related to the word tsundere, even with the jisho here, tsundere. So there's only two descriptions right. Normally being cold, but at some point promptly suddenly becoming love-struck, because it's based off the word tsuntsun, which is to mean like being cold and turning away in disgust. And dere is lovey-dovey. So that's why when I said about like using the phrase sweet and sour, or maybe hot and cold would work. Or that was why I thought, looking at that line, it's like, I came to see you, sweet and sour arsehole. That would work just fine, in my opinion, as like the line for that whole bit. Fragile wasn't even mentioned in there, which is the stupidest part about it. But anyway, we've already read that, and let's go down here. Yeah, fragile male ego, which is sometimes thinking that. Okay, so that's the same as they said in the last article. And now here we go. Despite the community protests about the translation decision, the English Twitter account for the original developer of the game, NOVECTACLE, chimed in to defend the localizer's decisions and the change. Oh, excuse me. So this is where I put my business knowledge to use for what I've learned here in Japan. So, in a series of published tweets on May 5th, around the same time as MangaGamer made their statement, and the NOVECTACLE account stated, "We have noticed there are discussions among some English community about the translation of Fata Morgana, so we would like to express our simple thought. We stand with the translator's opinions. We assume it was picked up without taking into consideration the situation and the character's relationship. The word appeared in the backyard, the specific situation that characters explain their stories doing fourth wall breaking." Which, yeah, the fourth wall breaking, speaking about the witch. The word was said by Morgana to Jacopo. Morgana, especially in the backyard, speaks very acrimoniously. Plus, she has a reason to insult him. Yes, she does. As the original word too, it is closer to the bitter sarcastic meaning about his attitude, which is why it makes no sense for like fragile male ego when it literally means something else entirely. So, tsundere, as that line was not ordinary tsundere meaning, think in those situations we understand well our translator has chosen the word after much reflection. So, that's the bit that gets me, is that last tweet. Has chosen the word after much reflection. Now, if you remember what Yukino said, back up here, where they said it took several weeks just to do that line, I think what's happened is there was a disagreement with NOVECTACLE originally with changing that word specifically, and I think they caved in my personal opinion. So let me finish this right here, and I'll give you a little bit of education from my knowledge, from a credited source that I've got from my course here in Japan to tell you why I think the way I do. So, of course, a bunch of Twitter users with pronouns. Yep, rainbow flags, that's the same as last time. They rushed to defend the English release. This isn't the first time that MangaGamer was caught in a snafu. Some of their localizers were caught in a Discord private channel. So yeah, that's what I've already covered that. So let's go on to this little piece right here. This is from my study piece about understanding Japanese practices, and the thing that gets me is this person, NOVECTACLE, has a very small following on Steam as well as in Japan itself compared to most other visual novel makers. Like NOVECTACLE on Steam only has like over just barely 100 followers, and when they were trying to get a work with Playism, they did not sell enough copies in order to be able to be sold on the platform. Henceforth, after that time that they couldn't sell enough to be able to end up on the Playism platform, MangaGamer took up the localization license for the House of Fata Morgana so that it can be translated into English. So, just bear in mind that the business was not doing so well. It didn't do well enough for NOVECTACLE to be able to go into the market he desired. However, there's one thing that Japanese makers and businesses all collectively want in general is strong business relationships. That's the thing that they want more or less in anything, because unless you have any ties to anywhere, whether it's in Japan or in America or the UK or anywhere in the world, business is always going to be different. But for Japan specifically, this is what they always do here in Japan, and I'll go over one fact of why in just a moment. The first step in entering the market is to import goods to Japan and to enter some retail channels. The Japanese partner can support these attempts and open up various channels for the foreign firm. So this is if it was a foreign firm, but it's also the same or very similar for Japanese businesses. Usually this export cooperation lasts for about 5 years, a time span in which the investor gains a lot of experience in dealings with Japan. So what this is saying is you need links. And this is also the same for saying if you are from Japan doing it abroad, you would want them links as well so you can get more financial gain. People will find your product, and in that way your business can stay afloat. The time span in which the investor gains a lot of experience dealing with Japan. When sales increase, different ideas about the product management by both investor and a Japanese importer often become evident, so they have to have neutral interests. Although it is very difficult to get into the Japanese market. Even though for foreign investors it's much easier, but if you're a Japanese company and a lot, unless you know as a foreign investor, you've got good language skills and that lot, you will not be able to do well. You would need to know. And also, this is one point I wanted to make as well, for the businesses in Japan, because they are low-risk businesses. And if you can make a business in Japan and survive, you can almost do a business anywhere in the world, because it is a low-risk country for finance investment. So, just this little point down here. With the majority, 99.7% of Japanese companies in the small and medium-sized sectors, local competition is largely domestic market focused and lacks effective strategies for international competition. So that's the point right there, is a majority of the companies in Japan are small to medium sized. So it's even harder with that many different forms competing with each other, especially for visual novels. Here in Japan, there are tons of them that are coming out near enough every day or two. So, especially for themes of horror, which are not the very easiest to get localized or well known in Japan, it makes it even harder. But the bit that I remember the most about this is that you have to know the people, you have to know the links, you've got to give the best customer service ever in the world. And the thing is, Japanese companies always need commitment. Like this, the Japanese market requires a lot of dedication and personal commitment. Many companies underestimate the time and effort necessary to be successful. The manager in charge of the market entry especially has to have the patience and make the effort to build relationship with consumers. And not only that, it's expensive to do market research in Japan, unless you do it yourself, which is very, very difficult. So that might be the reason why NOVECTACLE struggled to get the game on Playism, is because it didn't sell enough, because they didn't have the money to be able to get to enough local marketing research. So now that we think about that, and we know it requires a lot of dedication, and they rely on the relationships with the people that they're with, this explains why NOVECTACLE did not force MangaGamer to change the translation, and that's why I think this took several weeks, is because they majority-wise disagreed with the choices that MangaGamer were doing. But NOVECTACLE knows that if he tries to refuse it or disagree with them, and the risk of them cutting off the relationship is then and there, then that means that NOVECTACLE himself, or themselves, I don't know what gender they are, I don't know. But NOVECTACLE themselves, if they were to be cut off from it, that whole revenue stream would be gone. They have to rely on MangaGamer to get in income from foreign countries, because it looks like they didn't get enough from the Japanese market themselves. Henceforth, why they went forth and branched outside of Japan. And of course, that last bit is all speculation and what I've gained my knowledge from my studies. Of course, everyone is free to have their own opinion, but I believe that Japanese business practices are a part of why NOVECTACLE did not they didn't accept it at first, which is why it took a few weeks for them to actually get around for it. Because I believe there's pressure coming on from Yukino. Maybe Yukino, I think, may have put some pressure on with the translation alongside MangaGamer, but I cannot say for sure. At the moment here, this is just speculation. I think there was pressure on NOVECTACLE, and that's why it took a few weeks, because maybe they were saying, well, if you try and do this, we're just going to cut off something on your end. Is a possibility. Can't say it's a fact. I'm just speculating at this point. But that is my take on the whole thing with MangaGamer. And I think it's a very sad thing that they've decided to change one of the most commonly said words in Japanese anime and twist it to mean fragile male ego. How do you even get to fragile male ego when the words that are in Japanese aren't even related to tsundere? And also, bakayaro. Bakayaro is one of the rudest things you can say in Japanese. It's literally shouting at everyone that the person they're a freaking idiot. Like, in the most rudest way possible. So, that translation, I think, and the reasoning behind it, I don't agree with it. Myself, I think the reasoning, I get it, but I don't agree with it at all. And also the logic is kind of flawed in my own opinion, but that's just me. I mean, I am one man, I have only my opinion, and I have given all I can on this subject. But anyway, I am all out of time for this Yuusha Bulletin. This did take a bit longer than I expected to do, but this is one I felt like I had to do based on the fact of the knowledge that I gained from studying here in Japan on Japanese businesses. I've been doing it for a few months now, so I thought it would be, excuse me, an idea to put my own 2 cents in. But unfortunately, I'm all out of time for this bulletin now, so thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed. Leave a like if you did, subscribe if you want any more from me, and I shall see you in the next video. Soreja, guys. I'll most certainly see you next time. Come on, MangaGamer, sort yourselves out. I like your games. I want to play them. Please make faithful translations. Otherwise, you're going to end up pushing the fanbase that you're aiming to away. That's what you're going to do. You're going to push them away.